This is today's cyber news for September 26, 2025. You can also listen on the go at dailycyber.news. In the next 15 minutes, the most compelling cyber stories, clearly explained. Microsoft is warning about a new strain of malware hitting Mac developers through poisoned Xcode projects. This variant of XCSSE still steals browser data, Apple Notes, and crypto wallets, but now comes with stronger obfuscation, clipboard hijacking, and tougher persistence. It spreads by injecting into other local projects and runs each time a build kicks off, which helps it move across shared repos. The real risk isn't mass exploitation. It's high-value developer environments where signing keys, continuous integration secrets, and tokens live. If you build on a Mac, check your Xcode run script phases, compare diffs for suspicious changes, and scan launch agents or launch daemons for odd entries. Rebuild from a clean workstation, re-sign your projects, and rotate credentials. Development shops should also audit shared templates and sample projects. Traditional detection may miss this. Source control hygiene is what stops it early. A new randomized study has shown that traditional phishing training does little to reduce click-through rates, even with frequent refreshers. Researchers say that the quality of lures and the pressure of work context often overwhelm what employees remember from training. The solution isn't more awareness modules, it's stronger technical controls. Passkeys, also called FIDO2, block credential reuse. Strict DMARC settings reduce spoofed messages. And link isolation helps limit the damage from a bad click. Leaders should make reporting a one-click action, automate quarantine for risky messages, and measure success by stopped compromises instead of quiz scores. Micro-nudges have their place, but they can't win on their own. The direction of travel is clear. More investment in phishing-resistant authentication and workflow defenses, backed by regulators and cyber insurers. A supply chain warning comes from the JavaScript world. A lookalike NPM package named Postmark MCP stayed identical to the legitimate version for many releases, then quietly added a single malicious line. That change was enough to exfiltrate user emails, tokens, and metadata from any app that wired it in. Because MCP connectors run with broad access, the impact was serious. If your environment ever used that package, treat your email and secrets as compromised. Remove the dependency, rotate API keys and webhooks, and review logs for callbacks to suspicious destinations. Going forward, pin versions in lock files, require signed provenance in continuous integration, and use private registries for connectors handling sensitive data. These kinds of attacks thrive on small, unnoticed changes in familiar places. The U.S. government has placed new Cisco firewall flaws onto its known exploited vulnerabilities list, confirming active abuse. The issues affect adaptive security appliance and firepower threat defense software, including a code execution bug and an access control bypass. Federal agencies have hard deadlines to patch, and enterprises should follow suit with a focus on internet-exposed VPN portals. Exploitation attempts are expected to spike now that proof of concepts are circulating. The fix needs to happen in hours, not weeks. Disable unnecessary web services, monitor for unusual admin sessions or config changes, and prepare to redeploy clean images if compromise is detected. Teams should also verify that backups are intact and ready to restore. Edge devices are a favored target. Lock them down before attackers get in. Finally, AT&T customers hit by the 2019 breach and the 2024 Snowflake-related incident can now file claims for compensation. The settlement allows up to $5,000 for the first breach and $2,500 for the second. The exposed data included social security numbers and account details, which are prime material for identity fraud. The deadline to file is November 18th, and proof of out-of-pocket losses is required. Even if you don't claim, it's a good time to freeze credit, set a strong account PIN with your carrier, and enable multi-factor authentication on telecom, banking, and cloud accounts. Employers should also remind staff that SIM swaps and phone-based recovery flows remain common escalation tactics. Expect phishing that pretends to be settlement notifications. Verify portals before submitting anything. Austria's armed forces have completed a full migration from Microsoft Office to LibreOffice, citing digital sovereignty and control over telemetry instead of just cost savings. For defense and government, this is a security decision. Fewer opaque cloud hooks, clearer licensing, and the option to harden or fork code when threat models require it. The move covers about 16,000 desktops and comes as Europe increasingly pushes to reduce dependence on single vendors for critical tools. The transition won't be smooth. Macro compatibility, document fidelity, and user training will remain ongoing pain points. But it highlights a growing trend: governments accepting operational friction in exchange for sovereignty and risk reduction. Expect tighter procurement standards on data residency, logging, and incident response in productivity software. Other agencies will watch closely to see if the long-term security benefits outweigh the short-term headaches. The cooperative group in the UK has disclosed the financial damage from April's attack. They reported £80 million lost in operating profit and more than £200 million in revenue lost while systems were down. About £20 million went to one-time response and recovery, and another £60 million to lost sales during downtime. The retailer expects an additional £20 million in second-half impacts as remediation continues. These numbers show how long-tail costs outlast headlines and how business interruption is often the most expensive consequence. For peers, it's a reminder to practice the decision of shutting down versus isolating, to pre-write outage communications, and to have manual fallback plans ready. Insurance recovery can be constrained by exclusions and sublimits, so review those policies before you need them. Boards should measure time to restore critical systems as closely as they track patch cadence. Researchers are again warning about indirect prompt injection against autonomous agents. These systems can browse, follow links, and call tools, and will obediently leak secrets if a malicious page instructs them to, unless strong guardrails are in place. This isn't just a demo problem. Agents tied to customer relationship systems, ticketing platforms, or web-to-lead flows can be tricked into handing over real customer data, emails, or even location details. Defensive patterns include strict allow lists for tool use, checking provenance of content, filtering outputs before they hit downstream systems, and placing sensitive operations behind human reviews. Model-level refusals help, but they aren't enough when the agent has real API keys. Expect vendors to ship hardened browsing stacks and signed content pipelines, and buyers to demand attestations for agent behavior. If you're piloting agents, start with read-only scopes and non-production data, keep immutable logs, and red team them before wiring into live systems. The U.S. Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency has issued an emergency directive telling federal agencies to secure Cisco firewalls against two zero-day flaws already being exploited. The bugs hit adaptive security appliance and firepower threat defense software, allowing remote code execution and unauthenticated access to restricted endpoints. In plain terms, internet-exposed VPN portals become wide-open doors. Agencies are being told to patch immediately, audit configs, rotate credentials, and look for signs of compromise like strange admin sessions or modified VPN settings. Private companies should act just as fast. Restrict management interfaces, review crash and reboot logs, and plan for clean redeployments if compromise is suspected. Opportunistic scanning will spike as word spreads. Treat these like active incidents, not routine patch cycles. Interpol says a 5-month global operation across 40 countries seized more than $430 million in cash and cryptocurrency tied to online fraud. The focus was on the money flow, bank accounts, exchanges, and mule networks used to launder the profits of scams like business email compromise, romance fraud, and phishing. For organizations, the lesson is clear. Payment controls and rapid recall processes are as critical as email defenses. Verify suppliers through out-of-band channels, flag unusual transactions, and enforce monitoring for odd destinations and amounts. For individuals, avoid direct messages that demand instant transfers and double-check investment offers that sound too good. Once money moves across borders, it's nearly impossible to recover. Prevention and quick containment are still the only real answers. Researchers from Infoblox, Guardio, and Confiant are shining a light on a threat actor they call Vein Viper. This group blends ad fraud and malware delivery, brokering traffic for cybercriminals while running its own campaigns. It hides behind shell companies and complex ownership structures and has generated over 1 trillion DNS queries to muddy its trail and evade block lists. Its network spans malvertising, redirection chains, and malware droppers, supported by rapid domain churn. Defenders should lean on DNS behavior, look for huge query volumes, spikes in non-existent domains, and fast flux changes. Combine that with web controls like content security policies and script allow lists. Marketing teams should be part of this too. Tighten your ad supply chain and cut out shady partners. The report shows just how closely ad tech fraud and cybercrime now overlap. A Vietnam-based group known as Lone Nun is using fake copyright takedown notices to spread an information-stealing Trojan. The emails look like legal threats and link to so-called evidence files that actually deploy malware. Targets are site owners and content creators, people who may click under the stress of a legal dispute. Once installed, the malware hunts for browser data, stored credentials, and cryptocurrency wallets. The defenses are simple, but they're often skipped under pressure. Verify notices through official channels, block executable archives at the email gateway, and sandbox attachments before opening. Train legal and communications teams to escalate through controlled workflows instead of reacting directly. Indicators will change, so rely on behavioral detection and reputation systems, not just static hashes. Volvo North America has confirmed that employee personal data was exposed when its IT provider, Milio Data, suffered a ransomware attack in August. The incident also hit other well-known organizations, showing how broad the targeting was. It highlights the fragility of extended supply chains, where specialized vendors hold sensitive employee records and operational data. Immediate steps include notifying affected staff, offering credit monitoring, and making sure production systems remain segmented from HR and vendor portals. For other companies, it's a reminder to revisit assumptions about vendor risk. Require strict reporting timelines, escrowed logs, immutable backups, and clear recovery commitments when outsourcing services that handle personal data. Map your data flows so you can disconnect integrations quickly if a supplier is compromised. Third-party risk is often the fastest path into your environment. 2 malicious Rust crates slipped into the official package repository and quietly scanned developer machines for Solana and Ethereum wallet keys. The packages, named FasterLog and Async Println, looked like legitimate logging libraries and even worked as intended. But hidden inside was code that exfiltrated private keys to a hard-coded server. Together, they racked up more than 8,000 downloads before they were removed. Because developers often run these libraries locally and in continuous integration, the blast radius includes laptops, build agents, and mirrored repositories. If either crate touched your systems, assume key compromise, rotate wallets, revoke secrets, and review outbound logs for suspicious traffic. Going forward, lock down dependency sources, use cargo audit and other supply chain scans, and watch for subtle name squats or sudden maintainer changes. Small gaps in the supply chain can cause outsized risk. Cisco has fixed a high-severity flaw in the simple network management protocol subsystem of iOS and iOS XE, tracked as CVE 2025-20352. The vulnerability is already being exploited in the wild. Under certain conditions, an authenticated attacker could trigger a Stack Overflow, leading to denial of service or even remote code execution. Cisco learned of the exploitation after local administrator credentials were compromised, so patching alone won't close the loop. Restrict SNMP to management networks, disable version 2C community strings, and prefer version 3 with strong authentication. Audit for unknown managers and unusual query bursts. Rotate admin credentials, especially for devices exposed to automation platforms. If your telemetry shows unexplained reboots or SNMP spikes, treat it as a sign of possible compromise and hunt laterally. Broader scanning will rise as proof of concept circulate. ESET is tracking a new campaign they call Deceptive Development, run by North Korea-linked operators. The group poses as recruiters and collaborators to lure developers across Windows, Linux, and macOS. Their toolkit includes a new backdoor dubbed OctorT, along with utilities like Tsunami Kit and Tropador. Targets are developers in crypto and Web3 projects where source code, signing keys, and exchange integrations are high-value prizes. Defenders should restrict unsigned binaries, separate personal and project accounts, and avoid storing secrets in local repositories. Job offers and test tasks should be verified out of band, and unknown archives run in sandboxes before opening. Shops should enforce hardware-backed multi-factor authentication, short-lived tokens, and least privilege access to build systems. If direct targeting fails, expect these operators to pivot into supply chain compromises. Fortra's Go Anywhere managed file transfer platform has a maximum severity deserialization bug labeled CVE 2025-10035. The flaw is in its license servlet and allows full system takeover. Thousands of organizations use Go Anywhere MFT to exchange sensitive data with partners, making exposed consoles an inviting target. Prior waves of exploitation have shown how quickly these flaws are abused. Immediate actions include removing public access to admin interfaces, upgrading to the fixed version, rotating credentials and API keys, and inspecting for rogue users or scheduled tasks. Add web application firewall rules to block suspicious servlet paths and monitor for odd outbound traffic from file transfer hosts. If compromise is suspected, rebuild from clean media and reissue partner keys. The value lies not in the servers, but in the data flowing through them. Finally, a security researcher discovered an exposed database believed to belong to an auto insurance claims platform called ClaimPix. The database contained more than 5 million files, totaling about 10 terabytes. The records included names, addresses, policy numbers, and payment details, enough for phishing, impersonation, and fraud. It's unclear how long the data sat open or whether criminals accessed it. Insurers are prime targets because their data mixes personal and financial information. Organizations handling this type of content should default to private storage, enforce lifecycle policies, enable server-side encryption, and use automated scans for exposures. Consumers affected should freeze credit, enable banking alerts, and watch for scam calls or emails that cite real claim details. Regulators are likely to ask why basic protections were missing and whether data minimization was followed. That's the Bare Metal Cyber Daily Brief for September 25, 2025. For more, visit baremetalcyber.com and listen daily at dailycyber.news. Thanks for listening. We're back Monday.